Hey there! Are you a crime scene investigator, law enforcement officer, or forensic scientist looking for a Facebook community that understands you? Check out Taction USA's forensic product groups. You'll find blogs, articles, information, and community. For those of us in the investigative field, there are not many lines of support out there, but Taction USA is a company that was founded by law enforcement for law enforcement. Subscribe today to get access to exclusive content. Just look for Taction USA in Facebook groups.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to your favorite podcast, Crossing the Tape.
Yes.
We're back with another mini episode. The second in the series of Jack the Ripper.
Yes.
Our case study on the most mysterious man to never be caught.
Right, exactly.
So we're bringing you today his first victim. Please sign the crime scene log and join myself, Brendan, and
his wife, Hillary.
Bingo. Settle in.
So the first victim, her name was Ann Nichols. And there is a ton of information about her. I was actually very surprised.
Oh.
So
what a contrast.
Yes. So this episode will be a little longer than our other minis, but it's not a full episode, so I didn't put as much detail as I could have. Ann Nichols was the first known victim of Jack the Ripper, and Ann struggled through her life. She was married at one point, and then was separated and divorced, and she just had...
She had a rough
go of it. But she struggled through life, and she ended up employed at workhouses and staying in boarding houses. I even read that she had to share not only a room with another person, but a bed with some little old lady.
Oh, jeez.
So she stayed in boarding houses, and she suffered from severe alcohol addiction. And she was also a known prostitute. So her side gig was on the streets.
Yeah.
She was born as Ann Walker in London, and she, as I mentioned, was married at one time, but then separated. Because of this, she was forced to live in those boarding houses and to fend for herself. The last time that she was seen was by a friend, and she was very drunk and she could barely stand up. So again, this was kind of, unfortunately, her MO. She was...
Just her everyday life
was... Like, she had a job, but I don't think it paid very well. And so she had to supplement her income selling herself. And then...
spending most of her money on alcohol, it sounds like, too.
And she probably drank because she's depressed because of her life, so it was a vicious cycle.
Right.
But the last time she was seen, it wasn't clear exactly what streets, but again, these all occurred in Whitechapel. An area of London. And later, her body was discovered on that street near the hospital. It was facing up with one hand still holding onto a gate. So the pictures I've seen, I mean, they were illustrations,
yes.
Depictions, but apparently the police reports were pretty detailed, and it kind of looks like a narrow street, maybe a back alley kind of thing. And there's a lot of, brick walls, and then there's this gate. And I don't know if the gate went to the hospital or if that was something unrelated. But her body was face up, holding on to the gate. And when she was found, her hands were cold, but her body was actually still warm. So it had just happened.
Right.
There was also very little blood at the crime scene, despite her injuries, and she had multiple stab wounds. And this suggests that death was immediate, because there wasn't much blood.
So, to be a little gruesome, if she laid there suffering for a while, her heart still would have been pumping forcing blood out of those injuries. But, as you say, wasn't much blood, so that means her bodily functions totally stopped quickly.
Which, it's interesting, that kind of reminds me of a case that I worked where it appeared to be stab wounds, but there was hardly any blood, and then later autopsy revealed it was the cause of death was something different.
Right.
And that's why there wasn't any blood at the scene.
Right. The victim was being stabbed. But...
Yes. So, same kind of thing in this case with Mary Ann. Her autopsy revealed that she had been beaten and stabbed several times, but each stab wound appeared to be in strategic areas, as if the killer knew where to stab in order to hit certain organs. So it wasn't even like just, little stab wounds here and there, but he was hitting vital organs, which is why there was very little blood.
Because, very precise and direct.
Yes. Since there was very little blood at the scene, this suggests the strategic stab wounds were designed to kill quickly, which is also an interesting point, because it makes me wonder, did he not seek pleasure in suffering if he was killing his victims, at least his first one, so quickly?
Right.
But at the same time, she had several stab wounds, was beaten and mutilated, and that escalates with some of his other victims. So why the quick death?
Right. Kill them quickly, but then mutilate the corpse further.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of serial killers, people who do that sort of thing, they take some delight
in torture.
Right. Watching the victims suffer and beg and fight.
Right. And so, I mean, there are serial killers that they take pleasure in mutilating the body more after death.
Yes.
Post-mortem. But usually it seems a killer likes both. It's
right.
usually, or they just like the suffering when the victim is still alive. It's very rare that they enjoy just, post-mortem injuries.
Yeah, usually the after-death stuff is like the cherry on top for that sort of person.
It's not the kind of thing they like.
Yeah,
yes.
They prefer the living person dying at their hands.
So that to me is an interesting point. And as we get into other episodes over the next several months, we'll look into other victims and we'll kind of compare each scene and murder. So this marks the first victim of the infamous Jack the Ripper. And in the next episode, we will discuss the second, and we'll begin to look at evidence found at scenes, as well as what the location of the crime scene and what the body's positioning says.
So we'll get a little more forensic.
Yes.
We're trying to approach this we like to cover more uncommon stories usually,
right.
But figured we have the opportunity here to kind of look at this as a case study.
Yes, case study, and look at it as if we were trying to solve it today.
Now, we won't.
No, there's no way it will be solved.
Don't get your hopes
up. Don't get excited. Don't get excited about that.
That's not what we're doing.
Just take the journey with us.
Yes. And enjoy these terrible, terrible things that happen to these people. But the interesting parts of it, like you say, he shows commonalities with some serial killers, but some rare things, like focusing more on post-mortem.
Yeah. Usually that's just an addition. It's not the goal.
Taking the life.
Yes.
Makes him stand out more. Then it's even more aggravating that we don't know who he is.
Yeah.
He's really terrible and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, we will be back with part 3 of this series next month. As you said, another victim and some evidentiary things we'll touch on.
Yes. And we'll be, as the months go on, we'll begin to tie everything together. Again, we're not solving this. We're just delving into the details.
Right. What few there are.
Yes.
So, join us again for part 3 next month. Sign the crime scene log on your way out.
Thanks for listening and stay safe.
So